Are any of the characters in your book bilingual? If so, as someone who lives in a family full of bilinguals, here are 3 things about them that you can add to your book to make it feel a tad bit more realistic. Okay, one is that a lot of the time when they switch languages, they also code switch, meaning that the way they talk in their first language may be completely different from the way they talk in their second. And this is usually because they use each language for different scenarios. Whether that's one language for like purely work situations or another for when they're talking to their family. Alright, 2 is that although all bilinguals are different, I usually like to think of them in 3 categories. First is the all-rounder, which is just someone that can speak, write, read in both languages pretty fluently. Alright, next is the conversational, who usually has one language that's stronger than the other, and then also can usually speak that language better than they can read and write it. And then finally, there's what I like to call the high schooler, which means that they can understand the language, but they can't speak it. This just happens a lot with like the 2nd or 3rd generation immigrants. And 3 is that them speaking languages usually isn't black and white. Sometimes they speak a mix of both languages, or sometimes they just forget how to speak in both. Any of the characters in your book left-handed? If so, as someone who's ambidextrous, here are 3 things about left-handed people that you can add to your book to make it feel a tad bit more realistic. Alright, first off is that their hand is almost always smudged. Because we read from left to right, when left-handed people are writing, their writing hand always follows after the stuff they're writing. Whether it's pencil, pen, or whiteboard, they're almost always gonna have ink on the back of their hand. Number 2 is that almost everything is designed against them. I'm sure you already know about desks and how the armrests are always on the right, but this also happens with other things too. One of those things is scissors, because almost all scissors are designed for right-handed people. Generally, it's always extremely awkward for left-handed people to use them. So many other things too, such as can openers, cameras, and even measuring cups. Everything's designed against them. Finally, 3, and this builds onto the last point. Because everything is designed against them, left-handed people always have to adapt. That's usually by teaching themselves to use their right hand as well. Because it's just significantly easier. Are there any characters in your book that are children? So I just got back from volunteering at a daycare. They were trying to make me into a tiger, but here are 4 things about children that you can add to your book to make it feel a bit more realistic. First off, children are pathological liars, but they also don't have any motive behind their lies. For example, a child that just ate like a bunch of cookies they shouldn't have won't deny eating the cookies just to get themselves out of trouble. Most of the time, they'll just like lie for the sake of it. 2 is that you can think of kids like parrots. A lot of the time, they'll say super complex things, but they have like no idea what it means. For example, a kid at the daycare was talking about taxes, and he was saying some complex things that even I didn't know about. His dad worked in taxes, so it's pretty obvious that he was just copying what he heard. Third up is that they have intense preferences. Kids are really stubborn. Even if they're raised in a super strict household, they'll still be super stubborn, even if they're shot down again and again. 4 is that kids will just have random things in their pocket. They're kind of just natural hoarders. If you open a kid's pocket, you'll always find something, whether it's a rock, twig, or even a dog bone. Are any of the characters in your book dead? If so, I'm not dead, but I know some people who died. So here are 3 things about being dead that you can add to your book to make it feel a tad bit more realistic. First off is that their presence doesn't just completely disappear. Think of it less as if their existence is gone, rather as if they're missing. You're still gonna have a chair at the dinner table, and you're still gonna have a room. Whether your characters remove that presence or not, it's still gonna be there. Second off is that the way they actually lived can be very different from how people remember them. And you can see this in real life too. I mean, look at Gandhi as an example. He's remembered as a hero, as someone who saved India from colonization. He was also super Islamophobic and also forced women to drink poison. What I mean by this is that the way people remember the dead character in your book is not going to be exactly the same as how they lived, nor is it going to be the same across all your characters, because everyone views that character in a different light. Finally, third off is that funerals are expensive. Even the cheapest, which are direct cremations, are usually like $800. So just know that the type of funeral is going to depend on your character's financials. Are any of the characters in your book really gifted? Or they're just like really smart? So as someone who was in the gifted kid program for like 5 years, here are 4 things about really smart people that you can add to your book to make it feel a tad bit more realistic. First off, they experience burnout, like a lot of it. Because when you're smart, people expect a lot from you. So if you don't meet those expectations, it's just a lot of pressure. 2 is that they often fixate on really specific things. Why? I don't know. But one moment you'll see someone who's obsessed with astronomy, and then someone who's obsessed with like furniture design. It's like a mixed bag. 3 is that they're often hypocrites. Like a lot of the time, these really smart people will often be your therapy friend, the person who gives you advice, but they also don't follow their own advice, which is probably because they don't really think about the practicality of things before they suggest it. Are there any characters in your book that are quiet? If so, as a designated quiet kid, here are 3 things about quiet people that you can add to your book to make it feel a tad bit more realistic. First off is that all people who are quiet usually have some other way to express their emotions and thoughts outside of talking. This could be journaling, this could be art, this could be writing, this could be literally anything. But unless like otherwise, they always have some way to express their emotions, even if it's not the healthiest. Alright, second off is that not all quiet kids are soft-hearted angels. Remember that quietness can be for other reasons as well, not just because they're timid. Sometimes it's because they're just a slacker, or that they're way too arrogant. And finally, third off is that they're often pretty thoughtful. Usually they can be good daydreamers, or they're really good listeners or observers. But not speaking usually means that they're more developed in other areas. Do any of the characters in your book have allergies? If so, as someone who's allergic to apples, here are 3 things about them that you can add to your book to make it feel a tad bit more realistic. First off is that people with food allergies often don't hate the food they're allergic to. In fact, a lot of the time they love it. I feel like a lot of people think the opposite, but it's just not true. Which is why people with a lot of allergies find it suspicious when they eat food that tastes too good. Second off is that peanut allergies are not the most common type of allergy. In fact, they're actually 4th, with pet hair, dust, and any kind of seasonal allergy being ahead of them. So please don't make every single character in your book have a peanut allergy, because it's quite frankly unrealistic. And finally, third off is that they know the signs of a food not being allergy friendly. A lot of the time that's things like cross-contamination, but it can also be smaller things. For example, me, if I'm asking for the ingredients of something, if I sense like a pause or any hesitation, then I know it's probably not best if I were to eat it. Are any of the characters in your book immigrants? Or they happen to grow up with them? If so, as an immigrant and somebody who grew up with immigrants, here are 3 things about them that you can add to your book to make it feel a tad bit more realistic. First off is that their name is almost always pronounced wrong, no matter how simple it actually is. For example, my name's Rohan and I almost always used to get called Rohan, Rohin, Rowan, and like any variation you can think of. But because of that, a lot of immigrants have a nickname or an American name, as I call it. Alright, 2 is that there are multiple types of immigrants. First generation immigrants, someone who came directly from their country. These are the ones that have an accent, that don't fully speak the language, and usually feel really disconnected from where they're living. A second generation immigrant is someone whose parents are immigrants and came from another country, but they themselves did not. After that, a third gen immigrant is someone whose parents were second gen immigrants, and so on and so on. Alright, and finally, 3 is that they get called whitewashed a lot. Whether that's for losing part of their accent, forgetting parts of their mother tongue, or even just eating American foods. I feel like all immigrants have gotten called whitewashed at least once. Alright, does the character in your book wear glasses? If so, I just got some new ones, so here are 3 fun facts about people with glasses that you can add to your book to make it feel a bit more realistic. Alright, first off, we got the size of your eyes. This depends on 3 factors. 1, how far the glasses are from your eyes. You can see here that it changes depending on whether it's farther out or whether it's directly on the bridge of my nose. Second off is the prescription size. The thicker your lenses are, the stronger that magnifying or minimizing effect will be. And third is dependent on whether you're nearsighted or farsighted. If you're nearsighted like me, which means you can only see things that are close to you, then your eyes get smaller with your glasses. But if you're farsighted, which means you can only see things far from you, then your eyes actually get bigger. Next up, for everyone with action books, the way glasses break depends on the type of frame. For ones like mine where you can see the rim goes around the entire thing, the lens will pop out through the center. But for other ones that only have a rim around the top and have nothing below, a lot of the time when they break, they actually just fall down instead of popping out through the center. Third is how smudges actually work on your glasses. If your character is wiping their glasses with their fingers, remember that your fingers have oils. So after wiping with their fingers, it's often going to leave fingerprint stains, or just leave it more smudged in the first place. Do any of the characters in your book wear glasses? If so, as someone who's worn glasses for their entire life, here are 3 things about glasses that you can add to your book to make it feel a tad bit more realistic. First off is that your 2 eyes aren't one organ. How it works is that each of your eyes sees a different image, and then your brain stitches them together to create what you see. So if one of your eyes is covered, then you're only going to see the image from one of your eyes. Alright, 2 is that you instinctively push up your glasses, because they're always falling down, so even if you're not wearing them, a lot of the time you'll find that characters that wear glasses tend to instinctively push them up. And number 3 is that a lot of the time when they start crying, they take their glasses off. Because when you're crying, the glasses only get in the way and they get dirty. Are any of the characters in your book crybabies? If so, as someone who cries a lot, here are 3 things about crying that you can add to your book to make it feel a tad bit more realistic. First off is that crying is for more than just sadness. I don't mean tears of joy as well. There's tears of frustration, tears of embarrassment, tears of overstimulation. Crying isn't a sign of sadness or softness. It's just what happens when you feel too full of emotions. Second off is that there's a lot of physical effects of crying as well. Crying is 90% emotions, but it's also how you become super dehydrated, your throat hurts, your eyes burn. And this leads to a lot of people having a post-cry routine, which involves drinking a lot of water or drying off their eyes. Just remember that there's physical parts to crying as well. Third off is that asking someone why they're crying is only going to make them cry more. Because a large part of crying is trying to forget what made you cry in the first place. So asking that question at the wrong time can a lot of the time make it worse. Does your story take place in a high school? If so, as a high schooler, here are 3 things about high schools that you can add to your book to make it feel a tad bit more realistic. First off is that school culture isn't really a thing, but class culture is. especially with how different certain groups of people or teachers are. Although certain schools have very different vibes from others, the culture and dynamics of a specific class are, on a whole, a lot more important. Second off is that location plays such a major part in what your school's like. And I'm not just saying this because of different laws or weather, also things like different demographics of certain minorities or cultures, or the social dynamics of a city school versus a rural school, the political status of the area the school's in, or even just the amount of funding schools receive in that area. The location alone plays such a crucial role in how the characters behave, and so I recommend using an existing school as a reference. The third is to remember to make sure that the school is updated with the time. Whether it's in the past, present, or future, teens are the ones most affected by different trends and generational changes. So make sure they're not boomers.